another world war of that sorts, or something else, COVID 2.0, what we saw during COVID, insane issues with inflation.
I think this year is very similar, only worse than 2016, in that the economy is even in worse shape than it was then, and despite the media telling everybody how great it is. And Biden is getting the blame for the lousy economy, and Trump is coming in and recognizing how bad it is. And compared to how things were when he was president, they're a lot worse now. People are struggling a lot more. The cost of living has exploded.
Welcome to a special discussion with Whitney Webb and Peter Schiff. Today we explore the economic and geopolitical landscape, offering insights for uncertain times ahead. Webb highlights signals of looming challenges, urging preparedness in the face of uncertainty. Schiff reflects on Trump's past victory and exposes the disparity between media narratives and economic realities. Join us as we navigate global dynamics with Webb and Schiff. Let's begin.
I think Trump's going to win. And so far, my track record is pretty good because I thought he was going to win in 2016 and I thought he was going to lose in 2020. So the reason I thought he was going to win in 2016 was because he tapped into a vein that I knew was sensitive. The government, the Obama administration was pretending the economy was good, but the voters knew it wasn't. Right? The statistics didn't tell the real story. Average Americans were hurting, and the media and Obama were telling them that things were great. Trump came out and said, "I feel your pain," kind of like Clinton did initially on the economy stupid, but he identified, even though he's rich, he identified with the common man in their plight. And he said, look, I know things are bad. I will make America great again. We've lost all of our productive jobs. You're hurting. And I knew that was a winning message. And he was able to beat Hillary Clinton, who was basically 4 more years, the establishment, the status quo. So I thought that Trump would be able to win given the real nature of the economy, because people back then were saying there's a disconnect. Why do the voters not realize how good the economy is? It's because the economy isn't good, and the statistics are the disconnect, not the voters. Well, by 2020, Trump really hadn't delivered on his promises. He'd been in office for 4 years, and despite all the hype about how it was a booming economy, it really didn't improve. We continued to run big deficits, and inflation was there, and so we didn't have as big a move. But he actually might have won. It's just, who knows if he actually won or lost that election. But the way the votes ended up, the way they got counted, he lost.
Well, I definitely think it's probably, so think about what happened during COVID, and there were all these signals sent by powerful people that something greater than COVID would soon be upon us, whatever that is. So whether it's a giant war, another world war of that sorts, or, something else, COVID 2.0, what we saw during COVID, insane issues with inflation that persist, right? And insane supply chain issues. It's probably a good idea to have a supply of stuff you need to survive in your house. For X number of days, weeks, months, whatever. That's different for every person, but it's definitely not, it's definitely not a bad idea. And I don't think it's a tinfoil hat thing to say like, oh, I'd like to be able to feed my family if they close all the grocery store. We sort of saw with COVID, like how insane it was. I live in Chile, in South America, and there, when COVID started, there was some insane stuff there where you had to like show papers to get into grocery stores and stuff for a time. Like that could come back, it's not as crazy now as it might have been like 4 or 5 years ago to talk about that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with being prepared. There's probably something more wrong with being not prepared at all,
But I think this year is very similar, only worse than 2016, in that the economy is even in worse shape than it was then. And despite the media telling everybody how great it is and trying to wonder why it's not reflected in the polls. And in fact, not only is Biden the least popular president in history ever since they started doing these polls, but where he scores the lowest is on the economy. So if the economy is really so good, why does he score so low? Because He's getting, normally, if you're the president, if the economy is good, the voters will give you credit, whether you deserve it or not. But if it's bad, they blame it on you. And Biden is getting the blame for the lousy economy, and Trump is coming in and recognizing how bad it is. And compared to how things were when he was president, they're a lot worse now. People are struggling a lot more. The cost of living has exploded over the last few years. And so they want to go back to the way it was when Trump was president. Now, that's not going to happen if we elect Trump, but the voters don't know that. They just think, well, it'll be a magic solution. We just put Trump in there and these problems are going to go away. And I mean, they're not, but at least that's what the voters are going to hope. Because the one thing they're not going to want to do is vote to continue what we got, because what we got is awful. And so they're going to vote for change. They're going to want to throw the bums out. And the leader, the head of the bums, is Biden.
Yeah, well, I mean, it obviously depends on the thing you're talking about. But, you know, a lot of times government incompetence is the excuse. So, I mean, just talking about like financial policy and stuff. I mean, I think it's easier to pick apart in those cases because you can see the obvious who benefits and who doesn't sometimes more easily. And they'll sort of be oh, well, we just, when the Fed printed a bunch of money during COVID and gave it to BlackRock to manage, was that incompetence? Especially when BlackRock wrote a plan at the end of 2019 of the monetary policy that the Fed followed exactly when COVID happened about what the Fed would need to do during a unforeseen crisis. I mean, it's just was that incompetence or is that corruption? And so, I mean, a lot of times they try and absolve themselves of when they sort of get caught or start to get caught for something corrupt, they'll be oh, don't look any further. We're just really stupid, But if you consider just the massive amount of wealth transfer that's happened in the past 20 years to the people at the very top, obviously, well, I think it's obvious, but I mean, that can't all have been because of incompetence, and more is with COVID too, the safe and effective stuff about the vaccines. And I mean, a lot of people in alternative media knew it was experimental and that there wasn't enough testing and stuff, and they were censored. And then the stuff was forced on people through mandates and things like that. Was that incompetence? I mean, they knew then what a lot of people in alternative media knew then, they being, the people in charge, and they still put it through anyway. And now there's they're acting like it didn't happen,
Thank you for joining us in this insightful discussion with Whitney Webb and Peter Schiff. We hope you gained valuable perspectives on navigating today's complex world. Stay tuned for more enlightening conversations. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered. Thanks again.